Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all you folks out there in YouTube land. And thank you once again for those of you that may have tuned in to this channel called Think for a Change. And I hope what I got to say today will be helpful to you. That is my purpose in doing this. Now, I always begin with a shameless commercial, self-promotion. And let me hold up, this is my latest book called Reason and Beyond, available on the web, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, numerous places. And it's been out for a couple of months, and this time I'm going to show my first two books as well. From the Christ Mind is a 2-book series. Here's book 1. And here's From the Christ Mind, book 2. And these books are, as I've mentioned before, they're a link, a later-day supplement to A Course in Miracles, which is a profound spiritual teaching, been around about 40 years. And the From the Christ Mind is also available on Barnes & Noble website, the Barnes & Noble website, and Amazon, and also at a couple of Course in Miracles websites. On the West Coast, it's Community Miracles Center, and on the East Coast with Pathways of Light, also available there. All right. Well, let's start today. Let's just do a minute of silence. Just kind of relax. I know everybody tends to be pretty busy nowadays. Kind of relax. Let's just let all our thoughts and all our tension go and just sit for a quiet minute or so, half a minute or so, in semi-meditative state. Okay. I don't know about you, but I feel pretty relaxed. So the topic for today, I call it Spoiler Alert. Again, this topic, this theme, is one of the themes, one of the ideas in my latest book, Reason and Beyond, that occurs again and again. And I consider this idea a very important one. And this might even be one of the main reasons that I was guided or moved to write this book. Now, what do I mean by spoiler alert? I think everybody is familiar with that idea. Generally, it means you're reading somewhere online or maybe in a newspaper, magazine, a review of a book, or a TV series, or a movie, a film, somewhere. And in the review, the ending is revealed. Now, most of us don't want to know the ending before we start reading a book or going to the cinema. So today, I mean that in the context, I'm going to talk about the future. I'm going to talk about what I see is coming. And so in that sense, you could say it might be a spoiler alert because it might not be what you were expecting. And let me start by saying, I hope I am wrong. Again, many people have various ideas about where our society, our civilization is going. And some are very positive and benign. Some are a bit scarier. Some are referring to great change, disruption, etc., etc. Unfortunately, the message I bring today, and let me emphasize again, as I have done before on this channel, That what I bring, what I'm talking about, I think of it, I'm offering it as a message. As a message that I hope is helpful to people. And I suggest to the viewer, if you are interested enough to log on here, to come on here and listen, just if you would, relax with an open mind and just listen to what is said. And if it resonates with you, if it vibes with you, if you can use it, can learn from it, okay, then just take that which you find useful. And what you don't find useful, you can just let go. Okay. Again, this is another point I make in the book again and again. This is a fundamental, actually, theme or point in spiritual life. We are all responsible for our belief system, our thought system. And our belief system, our thought system, our ideas, good and bad, on how we should be, how we should not be, this whole, I call it a configuration of mind, and emotions are part of that, mind and emotion. That determines how we live, that determines our decisions, our relationships, our understanding, for either good or for bad, right? Either accurately or not accurately. So I want to make that point that, again, which I make in the book, the readers of the book and the viewers of this channel, you are responsible for that belief system, that thought system you have, and you will get the results, the consequences of your thoughts. You could say that's part of what we call the law of karma, all right? And that for every action, that's the law of karma is one of the fundamental spiritual laws, and it is a major concept in Buddhism and Hinduism, and generally in the mystical traditions. And Christianity, for example, it is expressed as you will reap what you sow. Same idea. And that actually applies also to our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, because it's that whole configuration of mind, right, of thought, of understanding, that fills consciousness, that directs, determines our reactions, our responses to life, our behavior, our relationships, how we treat others, how we treat ourselves. Okay, so this is a message. This is a message, and it's a message about what I expect is coming in the future, and I would say the near future. It's getting closer and closer. So I'm just going to talk about how I have, say, come to these conclusions about what is coming. So let me start out, first of all, just being a lifelong observer of the human scene and our human behavior, mine and others, of human society, of social scene, politics, interaction between nations. I lived overseas for quite a number of years, so I just got kind of a sense of the way things move, not only in our country, but also all over the world, as our Western civilization has kind of taken root everywhere and has become sort of a dominant paradigm for how we live, within the sort of confines that are also established by any particular nation or group of people as to how they live, how they think. So what I am expecting, like I say, first of all, is just the result of my observations. It's the result of what I consider just rational thinking or reasonable thinking. And here again, I'm going to refer to my latest book. The reason I call it Reason and Beyond is because I feel, and a lot of people feel, and we feel, maybe different ways, but we share this opinion. It's very important for human beings for us to think about the life around us, think about particularly the life within us and in our immediate life. Think about it and understand it from a standpoint that is somewhat clear and objective and fair. Okay? And in Reason and Beyond, I describe or define reason as let's say, as a thinking process in which I take into account all of the facts and factors, or as many as I can, that are part of, let's say, a particular situation, particular circumstances about which I have an opinion, or about which I hopefully have an understanding, and an understanding that will guide, of course, my behavior then, and my life in regard to these circumstances. So reason, when used in the sense that I talk about it, ultimately rests on the spiritual, because the spiritual dimension is the underlying substratum of our lives. We live and move and have our being in that unity from which we have arisen, of which we are a whole part, of which we are a creative, you could say, extension. So I use the term reason. Excuse me, I'm drink a little water here. I'm getting a little hoarse. Good stuff. I use the term reason, again, with a fundamental base on reality. And then from there, I also try, if I apply thinking, if thinking is applied to any area, any aspect of human life, I suggest in the book, and I suggest to people, we try to look at it objectively and open-mindedly. We want to look at the life around us, look at our fellow human beings, and look at ourselves with a sense of fairness, open-mindedness, without judgment, without condemnation. There is a tendency in the human mind. I titled this talk, spoiler alert, but there's always so much to talk about. Forgive me, I find myself going off into various avenues because it's all of a piece. So hopefully eventually, before this video is over, I will get to the theme. But if not, I guess this is what I'm supposed to talk about. But again, what I suggest in the book, and what I have been teaching for a number of years when I was teaching, is I've been trying to convey to my fellow human beings the importance of a mind that is open and clear and is resting, hopefully, in a state of communion with and harmony with the fundamental basis of our being, which is, we call it soul, we call it spirit, we call it the self with a capital S, Buddha nature, or the Christ. There's a lot of different terms. But from my perspective I present, if we want our thinking, if it is to be truly reasonable, truly based on truth, needs to take into account not only the facts of our being, but also the facts on the surface. The physical life that we live with its mental and emotional accompaniments and reactions, that is the very superficial level of existence. That is important, because that's where, in effect, you could say we are stationed, even as spiritual beings. And so it is important, even on that level, it is important to be able to think clearly and see things clearly. And you may notice, of course, nowadays, if you look at the political situation, how polarized, even the social situation, how polarized everything is. There's and the problem with this, of course, it's fine to have deeply held beliefs, etc., as long as they have some relationship, let's say, to the good of humanity, and some relationship to the truth of what you are. So we have in the social scene, we have all the isms and the differences between, the divisions between people with various political and social views. We have the tension between the sexes, male and female. We have tensions between ethnic groups, between races, between nations. In a sense, everywhere you look, we see a lot of tension and separation. And what, again, the use of the word reason, as I use it, is the attempt to use your mind to look beyond all that separation, look beyond what we have in common, and try and see it openly and objectively for what it is, and to try and stand beyond all of that. And in effect, now this comes again sort of the gist, part of what I mean, or part of what I aim at when I talk about the future. We want to stand in that place where we take responsibility for all our thoughts. Don't believe everything you think. I saw that as a bumper sticker. I think that would make an excellent t-shirt. Don't believe everything you think, right? Thinking process is automatic. It's influenced by many things. There are many things that we think that are simply not true. Now, the spiritual path, for those who seriously engage it, and this has been taught in Buddhism, Hinduism, Sufism, Sufi movement. Sufism is the mystical, the spiritual part of the Islamic religion. And most of those who are called saints in Islam are Sufis. They are like the saints in the Christian religion. They are love, they are kindness and tolerance. And the Sufis emphasize very strongly, got to get to know your own mind, get to know what they call the lower self, the nafs, which is the ego, the person. So anyway, a big part of the spiritual path is something I've learned. Thankfully, it was presented to me many years ago and began to practice what's called mindfulness, self-awareness. I know lately that's become kind of the latest buzzword, the latest industry, so to speak, in the spiritual marketplace. But mindfulness goes back to Buddhism and beyond. It goes back thousands of years, and it is something that is an important part of not simply the spiritual path, but even just to become a mature human being, to become a kind and benign and helpful influence to those around you. We must become aware of the movements in our mind, which are to a great extent unconscious. They've been programmed, we've learned them as we've grown up. The movements of judgment and of anger, condemnation. That's a big part of the spiritual path. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop there. I took off and went way over here. Anyway, going to come back to this whole idea of the spoiler alert. Take a little look at, well, I'm running out of time here, I think. Got a few more minutes. All right. The second, let's say the second part of my approach to the future, I just told you the first one has to do with my observations and my, hopefully, use of the reasonableness of mind, rational mind, to just observe what we're doing to each other, to the planet, the conflict and everything. So just my rational mind tells me, gives me a good sense of what is most likely coming, even though I say I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. All right, the second part, the second place from which I'm coming when I talk of the future is, let's say, spiritual information I've been given, downloads. Okay, at this time, let me just talk about a little bit. We have been getting a lot of help, I think, in recent years. A lot of people feel that, from what I'll call higher intelligence. Now that includes that beings living on a higher level than just the physical. They include what we call spirit beings, what we call light beings, angels. There are other names for them. But there are many who feel this way, and myself as well, that a lot of what we call that spiritual light, that help, has been given in recent years, has just been flowing into the human mind and received by those who are open to it. And I also have been receiving that information. And I'll tell you what I have been told for quite a while is that the help we are giving is to kind of hold off the period of disruption and big changes as long as possible, to let people, as many people as possible, develop spiritual consciousness. And the help we're being given and will continue to be given is to help mitigate the effects of the various changes and disruptions. But what I have been told again and again, is this higher intelligence, these higher beings, cannot, in effect, save us from ourselves. They can't save us from what we're doing. There is a karmic aspect to it. Okay? And as I mentioned earlier, the karmic law is one of the primary spiritual laws. Now, the other very important spiritual law in play here, the law of free will. There is a commitment in much of humanity to our self-centeredness, our selfishness, to not living according to the higher laws we have been given through religions and spiritual teachers, commitment to me and mine, commitment to anger and judgment, even hatred, and the conflict and the violence, etc., etc. There is a commitment in a great segment of humanity, and that, unfortunately, to some extent or another, includes many of those who hold positions of power, whether in economics, whether the various experts, whether in politics, etc., etc. Many people are just nonetheless committed to a particular view. My nation, my people, my this, my that. Okay? And always, the other guy is also committed to that idea, then you have conflict, don't you? You have a lack of cooperation or diminished cooperation. And so for that reason, a friend of mine once said, this present time is a time when the karmic chickens are coming home to roost. And I really think we are approaching, we are already in that time to a certain extent. And things, I think, will be speeding up. But we do have help. We have help. In fact, the predictions by individuals who were considered quite accurate, made much earlier in the 20th century, or centuries even before that, by Nostradamus, by Edgar Cayce, and by others. But those predictions often had the big changes occurring right around the end of the 20th century. So in other words, we've gone about 20 years beyond that. And I myself was expecting things like that. These things to big changes, the disruptions, etc., that are going to occur, I was expecting them to occur much more quickly. In fact, I was guided to begin to give public talks on this topic starting about exactly 30 years ago. So I was quite surprised that we managed, and happy that we managed to kind of keep going and avoid the worst. And an expression I use that, we've managed to keep the economy going. The modern economy uses smoke and mirrors for a long time, but we are running out of smoke and mirrors. And that's part of the big changes coming, is that our economic system does not seem ultimately sustainable, is going to have to change. And yeah, there just isn't a choice on that. So I think I may stop right now, and I'll have to do another video, and I'll take up where I left off. But basically, I'm saying there are big changes coming. I expect them to really become visible in the next year or two. And I bring this message to people not to frighten you, no, but to prepare you. Because I have no fear at all about what's coming, and I've had many visions of the future as well. That's also a part of, you could say, what I see is coming. There's never any reason to be afraid. It doesn't help. And if you are, again, a spiritual practitioner, you should know that the spiritual awakening, the spiritual process is about healing everything in your mind and heart that is not love. And fear is the opposite of love. Fear drives out love. So as serious spiritual practitioners, we are always looking to heal fear in all its forms. And judgment, condemnation, hatred, anger, they all come from fear. We are looking to heal that. And you will be needed, every one of you, as lights, as centers of light to which others can look and to help. And that's the fundamental message I'm bringing. Okay, that's enough for now, and I think in the next video I will talk about it more. So I thank you. I thank you for listening to this, those of you who tuned in. I hope it's helpful. God bless you. God bless us, each and every one. And hopefully We'll see you again. Bye-bye.